You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, Minisode number 615. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I'm so glad that you're here with me today. I have, it feels a little bit like an after school special, a very special episode of Make Some Noise podcast. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it kind of is. I have been kind of thinking about doing this for a minute, and it's summertime. People are drinking a lot, and it might be a good time. If you know me in these parts, if you've been around for a while, you know I've been sober for a while, 12 years now as I'm recording this in the summer of 2024. So this September, it'll be 13 years, I believe. Yeah, I got sober in 2011. It's been a minute that I have not drank any alcohol. And I have shared my story many times. I've had a couple of recovery series here on the show. I can pop that link in the show notes where I interviewed people, mostly women, but a few men in there too, maybe just a couple, around their story about getting sober and what that looked like for them. It can look many different ways. And at the time when I got sober, not a lot of people were talking about, I mean, I should say not a lot of people who had sort of like online brands like I did were talking about these types of things. And so it was kind of a big deal back then. I got countless. I still do sometimes, but not quite as often now that the market is more saturated with people who are talking about it. And that's really their niche. But I still from time to time get emails and messages in my DMs about people thinking about looking at their drinking patterns, their relationship with alcohol. And so I like to, from time to time, come on here and talk about it, share a little bit of my experience, and just share my expertise around it. Before I jump into that, I want to let you know that Amy Ehlers and I are happily hosting and facilitating the writing experience again. We hosted this program in 2020 and in 2021. Loved it. The most amazing, magical group of women came together, and we're doing it again. And this is for anybody who has a writing project that you're either thinking about or that you have started and you're just inconsistent about it. You want both a place to be coached around your writing project and accountability around it, as well as community of women who are in a similar place that you are. So head on over to andreaowen.com/links to read the info page about that. There's 2 different packages you can choose from. You can get some one-on-one coaching from both Amy and I. We have 5 books between the 2 of us, hundreds of thousands of copies sold. We know the ins and outs of the publishing industry, both traditional and self-publishing. Tons of bonuses for this program too. And it's reasonably priced because we know that, whoa, this year is uncertain, isn't it? All right. Speaking of uncertainty, many times when you're uncertain, you can turn to booze, right? It's one of the common coping behaviors, numbing mechanisms that we grab onto when we're feeling vulnerable, when we're feeling bored, when we're celebrating. There's just so many reasons that we drink. And it's no surprise when I tell you that our culture is mildly obsessed with alcohol. I think that sort of the covers are being pulled back on that now over the last few years. More and more people are talking about like, hey, let's look at this. Like, why as a culture are we so obsessed with drinking? Why is it considered kind of weird when someone doesn't drink? It's much less so than it was even when I got sober, but it's still kind of a thing. And this isn't to shit on anybody who drinks. It's fascinating to me when people have a healthy relationship with their alcohol. They can have one drink and put it down. They can take it or leave it. It's just really not an issue at all. I'm like, what's that like? What is that like? Tell me everything. Tell me this folklore. But I wanted to come on today to talk to you about some signs that you might have in your life that could be a sign that you have a problem with alcohol. I know when I was questioning my drinking, I wanted to go on the internet and I wanted someone to give me an answer. I wanted to Google, do I have a problem with drinking? And I wanted Google to pop up a yes or a no, you don't. But it was all these quizzes. It was like blog posts like I'm about to give you. And that's really all we can do. Because at the end of the day, you are the only one that knows if trying sobriety is best for you, if completely abstaining is best for you, if just looking at your behavior around alcohol, your relationship with alcohol is for you. So that's what this is. So it's a 1 through 10. And somewhere in this episode, I'll give you kind of a brief synopsis, or maybe as I go through, I'll give you a brief kind of snapshot of what it looked like for me, like especially towards the end when I decided to quit. All right. The first one is 10 signs you might have a problem with alcohol is you're hiding booze and or lying about how much you're drinking. This one might seem kind of obvious. And anyone who's in a place where you're kind of questioning your alcohol, but you don't do this, keep listening. These are in no particular order. But for me, what that looked like was I would start drinking in the afternoon around 3 or 4 o'clock, and I would have like 1 or 2 glasses of wine or 1 or 2 beers. And then I would put it all away because then my then husband would come home from work, and then I would, chat with him, hang out with him for an hour or so, and then start to make dinner. And then I would get out the bottle of wine or a beer and, start to make dinner and pretend like I was just having my first drink for the night. And so that was me lying about how much I was drinking. And yeah, that might be a sign that it's not healthy anymore. The second one is you're spending a lot of, directly related to that one I just talked about, but you're spending a lot of energy covering up how much you drink. So this might look like what I just described to you. And for me, it was also small things. And this goes back years, even before I decided to quit. I was just telling someone this. I was on a first date and he was asking me about, my sobriety and getting sober. And we were actually at a bar. I still like bars, and I like that they have, mocktails and things like that. And so I was drinking a mocktail and he asked me about it. And I said, if I had still been drinking and we were on this first date, I would have very likely pre-gamed before I even came. And also, if you went to the bathroom, I might order a shot. Like if I knew I could order it, pay for it, get it done before you came back, I might go up to the bar and order a shot of Patron. And he's like, why wouldn't you just order that with your date? And I'm like, I would do both, but I want to be one shot ahead. So it's things like that, like covering up and just sort of like strategizing about how I can drink more, but also not wanting people to know about it. So I would cover it up. So number 2, you're spending a lot of energy covering up how much you drink. Number 3, you're fighting a gut feeling about it. You're fighting a gut feeling about it. I have spoken to countless people, especially women, who say to me, I just have a feeling that I'm going to end up quitting drinking. I have a feeling this is going to, if I keep drinking, it's not going to end well. I have a feeling that it's best for me to try 30 days sober. I have a feeling I'm an alcoholic, and it's like, trust that. Because I had all those feelings too. I had a feeling if I kept drinking, my life was going to be a fucking disaster. I had a feeling that I needed to get sober. I had a feeling that I could not go back to having fun, just fun in my drinking. I felt all of that. And boy, did I fight it. I didn't want to. I didn't want to give it up. I liked drinking. It felt comfortable to me. I felt like it was my identity. So I fought. It was a street fight. And yeah, that's another sign. You're fighting a gut feeling about it. The fourth one is you feel guilty, ashamed, and or embarrassed about your drinking, or all three of those, or you sort of bounce back in between those feelings. There's usually not a hard and fast line in between those feelings. You feel guilty, ashamed, and or embarrassed about your drinking. So this doesn't necessarily have to mean that you did something bad or humiliating. You know, I used to show everybody my boobs a lot. Or, my butt sometimes too. But, I was young. I was in my 20s and everybody was partying and things like that. If I did that now as a 49-year-old mom, I would probably be, feel humiliated and ashamed of my behavior the next day. And I'd probably, if I was still drinking, I would probably end up doing all of those things. And so it's just, you look back and you are embarrassed or ashamed or feel guilty or humiliated about the behavior that you engage in, and you would not engage in that behavior if you were sober. That's another sign that you might have a problem with alcohol. We're going to take a quick ad break, and I'm going to go through 5 through 10. We'll be right back. Shopify's already taken the cash register online, helping millions sell billions around the world. But did you know that Shopify can do the same thing at your retail store? Give your point of sale system a serious upgrade with Shopify. With Shopify, you get a powerhouse selling partner that effortlessly unites your in-person and online sales into one source of truth. Track every sale across your business in one place and know exactly what's in stock. Connect with customers inline and online. Shopify helps you drive store traffic with plug-and-play tools built for marketing campaigns from TikTok to Instagram and beyond. Get hardware that fits your business. Take payments by smartphone, transform your tablet into a point of sale system, or use Shopify's POS Go mobile device for a battle-tested solution. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/noise, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/noise to take your retail business to the next level today. Shopify.com/noise. I have definitely been in that place where my paycheck ran out before the next one got here. Life doesn't happen bi-weekly, so why should payday? The money you earn can be in your hands today with Earnin. Earnin is an app that gives you access to your pay as you work, up to $100 per day or up to $750 per pay period. Just download the Earnin app and verify your paycheck. Then access up to $100 a day as you work and leave an optional tip. Any money you access plus tips are automatically repaid from your next paycheck. You can use Earnin to pay for a girls' night out, a last-minute gift for a loved one, or even summer camp for the kids. Make Earnin a part of your financial routine and join Earnin's over 3.5 million customers who say things like, when I think about Earnin, I think about financial stability, security. It gives me a lot of peace of mind. Download Earnin today, spelled EARNIN, in the Google Play or Apple App Store. When you download the Earnin app, type in Noise under podcast when you sign up. It really, really helps the show. Noise under podcast. Subject to your available earnings, location, daily max, and pay period max. See earnin.com/TOS for details. Earnin is a financial technology company, not a bank. Bank products are issued by Evolve Bank and Trust, member FDIC. Fast forward to the end of 2024 and think about your goals. What can you do right now to give yourself the best chance of succeeding? If you want to learn a new language, you absolutely should get Babbel. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors or waste hours on apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. Babbel's designed by real people for real conversations. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. Now it's so easy to speak simple conversation phrases phrases with the guy that takes care of my lawn without having to consult language apps. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/noise. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/noise, spelled BABBEL.com/noise. Rules and restrictions may apply. All right, we're back. Number 5. This one's very specific, and people who don't drink would not typically see this in their life. So the 5th one is you notice other people's drinking habits. So normal drinkers, people who have a healthy relationship with alcohol, tend to not notice how much other people are drinking or pay attention at all. They might if it's excessive, if it's a lot and it's a pattern on someone. Yeah, when it's obvious. But little like nuanced things, like I'll give you an example. So early on in my sobriety, I used to play roller derby, and we were at a Christmas party. That was the derby Christmas party. And I wasn't drinking, and I was with my then husband, and I'm sort of watching everybody sort of just engage with the party. And I leaned over to him and I said, "Don't you think it's interesting that there's only, what was it? I think it was just like beer and booze there. There was no wine." And he turns to me and he said, "No, I didn't notice that at all." And I was like, huh. I sure did. And it's like my brain is still constantly taking inventory, just like scanning the horizon for what people are drinking, how much they're drinking, just the details that specifically revolve around drinking. So again, that one's a little bit more nuanced. Number 6, directly related to that one, you think about drinking a lot. You think about drinking a lot, not necessarily just the act of drinking, but everything that corresponds to it. So you think about if you get invited to a party, you think about, all right, what kind of alcohol is going to be there? How long is the party? Should I drink ahead of time, or should I eat dinner ahead of time, or should I go on like a half empty stomach so I can catch a buzz? Like everything sort of if it was a social event, it very much revolved around my buzz. How drunk can I get? How drunk should I get? Like I didn't think a whole lot about who was going to be there and how much fun I was going to have and who I was looking forward to seeing or talking to. And it was mostly around alcohol. And I do think that is one where you're pretty deep in it if that's where your brain goes, but it's definitely a red flag that you probably have a problem with alcohol. And I know that it's been conversation around labeling yourself as an alcoholic. And I've heard there's a lot of controversy around like, don't call yourself an alcoholic, or I don't call myself an alcoholic. And it's like, whatever. I have my thoughts and opinions on that. I'm not going to get too far into it. However, for just the sake of argument in this conversation, I think that if we're, let's just label like any kind of problem drinker, using air quotes over here, is an alcoholic. In the rooms of recovery, when we're talking about alcoholism, it's not necessarily the quantity that you're drinking, because that can vary a lot. It's highly subjective depending on a lot of factors, but it's the mind fuck. That is the prison of alcoholism. It's the constant thinking about it. They call it the obsession that we want to free ourselves from. Not necessarily the drinking, it's the obsession. That's what I mean when I say number 6, you think about drinking a lot. Number 7, the thought of living your life without alcohol scares you and you just can't imagine it. The thought of living your life without alcohol scares you and you just can't imagine it. I could not fathom my life without drinking. I could not imagine being on a boat, camping, being at the beach, anything summertime related, anything holiday related, anything where the weather is cold, anything where the weather is warm. Pretty much everything I could find a reason to drink. And also my identity, I felt like my identity revolved around drinking because oftentimes I was labeled as the fun one. Andrea is always going to be entertaining. Andrea is always going to be fun. We're always going to have fun with her. And it was a lot easier for me to show up for people in that way when I was drinking. Because I'm a normal human. There are some days where I'm not feeling it. I don't want to be entertaining. I just don't have the energy to conjure up the enthusiasm that comes with entertainment. I love doing it. It's a natural part of who I am. It comes very easily to me, but it just was the lubrication that I always needed. I could always, no matter what kind of day I was having, no matter what kind of mood I was in, no matter where my menstrual cycle was out, if I was drinking, I would always entertain people and they would like me more. That's what I made up. They would like me more. And the thought of like having to go through hard things without alcohol seemed unimaginable and excruciating. Like I could never. I knew I couldn't do it, and I sure as shit didn't wanna. I wanted no part of that. That was such a huge red flag for me when I admitted that. That was a big one. So that was number 7. Number 8, every day feels like Groundhog's Day. Is it Groundhog Day or groundhogs? Are there multiple groundhogs or just the one like we see on Groundhog Day? I don't know. But you get up, you feel like shit from drinking too much the night before, whether, it's just a little dull hangover or you were out partying and you have guilt and shame and all of those feelings from drinking way too much and doing things that you regret. You commit to not drinking just that day. You're like, I'm not going to drink today. Ugh. Yeah, just feel crappy. And then that lasts like around dinner time. I mean, this is at least my scenario. So this is just an example. That feeling lasts around dinner time where you find a reason to just have one drink. You're just going to have one drink. And then before you know it, you maybe drank a whole bottle of wine, or you threw back, 4 beers or had a few cocktails and you're back to where you started the day before. It starts over and over the next morning. Or maybe it's every weekend. Maybe it's not even just every day. It's every weekend. It feels like the same thing. You're someone who has a really active social life and your social life always revolves around drinking and you just can't seem to keep it together. And it feels like every weekend, it's the same goddamn weekend. Number 9, you very much look forward to occasions where you can drink a lot. And it's not necessarily that you look forward to the social aspect of it. So maybe it's Super Bowl parties, your birthday, concerts, Thanksgiving, Christmas Day. For me, any day that it was socially acceptable to start drinking around lunchtime and get drunk by dinner was like dreamy. I couldn't wait. I looked forward to those days like it was like a kid at Christmas. I remember feeling that way about an upcoming Christmas party that we got invited to. And I had that like gut feeling of like, maybe it's not okay that I'm more looking forward to how much I can drink at this Christmas party rather than the people that I'm going to see at this Christmas party. That was number 9. Number 10 sign, the 10th sign you might have a problem with alcohol is you get irritated and or even angry if there's a social event without alcohol, like a dry wedding or a restaurant that doesn't have a liquor license or a kid's birthday party that just has water and soda. And you're like, ugh, what I wouldn't give for a box of Franzia right now. It's kind of a minor one, but it might be something to look at. The bottom line really is that our lives begin if your life feels like it's beginning to revolve around alcohol and the feelings around it, kind of, if you're not thinking about the act of drinking, you're feeling guilty or ashamed about it. You're wondering if you drink too much, wondering if your family or your loved ones are noticing. Things like swearing that you're only going to drink beer and wine from now on after a night out of too many martinis or cocktails. Maybe you commit to drinking more water in between drinks, saving your calories to be able to drink more. The thought of sobriety and recovery seems weird and uncomfortable. Not to mention, feeling shame around having to tell people that you aren't drinking anymore. By the way, you don't have to tell anyone you're not drinking anymore. The shame of having to identify as an alcoholic. You don't have to identify as an alcoholic. But all of these things. So that's my list of 10. And I just want to underscore one more, and that's number 3. You're fighting a gut feeling about it. Yeah. Hey, DM me on Instagram if you are feeling this episode, and also share it with anyone, to your social media. You never know who needs to hear it. Maybe you don't have anyone directly in your life that you think might need to hear it. It's always kind of an awkward conversation. But, you could just share it casually, and hopefully the right person who needs to hear it will hear it. I appreciate you all so much. I appreciate your time that you spend with me here on this podcast. And remember, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey everyone, thanks again for listening. I would be so incredibly grateful if you haven't done so already, if you could leave a review of this podcast on Apple Podcasts. Super easy if you already listen to your shows over there. But if you don't, or maybe you have the app on your phone, but you listen to this show on a different app, if you could leave a review for this show, it matters so much. I wish I could express how much it matters. I also wish that it didn't matter so much, but alas, it does. So if you haven't already, please go review and rate the show. It would mean so much to me. And thank you so much. I hope you have an amazing day.
I'd like to introduce you to the Minimalist Moms podcast. It's hard enough being a mom, and the last thing you need is stress from too much stuff and an overcrowded schedule. For too long, I lived with the mindset that bigger was better, and the more I added to my life, instead of feeling better, I felt overwhelmed. It was time for a radical new mindset. Less is more. I'm not into extremes. I didn't throw everything away. My brand of minimalism is more about adding than subtracting. Get rid of the excess to make room for what you love. In other words, it's about living life with purpose. I hope you'll listen in, and my guest and myself can inspire you to think more and do with less. The Minimalist Moms podcast, available wherever you listen to podcasts.